afternoon, but I'm glad that you're here to join us again and to give us, sorry, like a follow-up to what you went through between yourself, your children, your family. So do me a favor, please. Reintroduce yourself, tell my audience a little bit about who you are and of course where they can find you.
Thank you. I'm Lorina. I'm an author and mother of three children and a national advocate for families. Let's see here. Sorry, what was the question? Tell you a little bit about myself and what else?
And who you are.
I'm a mother of three children, and we went through a misdiagnosis with my son, which has turned our pain into purpose to try to help so many other families nationwide and worldwide.
So I know since
Our
our
story,
sorry, go ahead.
our story went nationwide a few months ago with ABC News. There's an awesome news reporter that shared our story nationwide, and it got so much feedback. And our story is also shared on Univision nationwide, which is a Latin, well-known, I guess you'd say like TV station, news station. And that was awesome because that also went nationwide recently. I've had meetings with three lawmakers in Nevada, and we just hope to continue to raise awareness and fight for changes together with organizations and families and attorneys.
So, since we last spoke, I know that things have improved since you were going through it. So, you mentioned you've met with lawmakers. What's some of the changes that either you're trying to get done or some of the changes that you'd like to see get done so this situation doesn't happen to you again or someone else out there?
Yes, the topic of this situation is medical misdiagnosis and how it's affecting children and families nationwide and worldwide. And we went through a similar situation with my son. At about when he was born, we noticed that his head was getting larger than normal since birth. And then he was having some symptoms. He was vomiting and just something didn't seem right. So we kept taking him to the doctors and they kept misdiagnosing him with a stomach bug. And at about 5 months old, his pediatrician said, "Hey, just take him to the children's hospital to have images, and he should be fine, but we just want to do it like as a precaution type thing." So my children's father took him to the children's hospital. They took images, and then he called me because I had to be at home with my other son. And he just said they found fluid in his head, and they're trying to say that he was abused. They're trying to say it was shaken baby syndrome, which he knew that I would never hurt our children, and I knew he would never hurt our children. So we're just shocked and completely heartbroken to hear something so devastating. And the children's hospital didn't listen to us. No one, like none of the doctors or nurses or staff would listen to us. They just went with abuse, and that was it. CPS showed up in the hospital as my baby was about to have serious neurological surgery, and they interrogated us. And we kept saying, our son was never hurt. So they just treated us like we were criminals ever since that day. CPS did, the doctors, the nurses. It was just a horrible situation to see your baby go through such a heartbreaking medical condition, and then to be wrongfully accused of hurting your child. It's completely devastating and shocking. At about So my son had a serious neurological surgery, and then a few weeks later, the fluid reaccumulated, and he had to have a second neurological surgery to have an internal VP shunt placed, is to help drain the fluid. So that was concerning for me, as his mother. I'm like, okay, why does he have this chronic condition? And all they told me was they don't know. So I'm like, okay, you don't know why he has a chronic condition, but you're trying to say he's abused. This makes no sense at all. So then, see, a few months later, I noticed CPS was starting to get a little more aggressive with me because I told them I'm going to take my son to see different doctors and I will find out his correct diagnosis. And a few months later, that's when it seemed like everything shifted and they were getting more aggressive with me because they knew I was taking him to see other doctors. And we went to visit family in Oklahoma, and they told CPS Texas called CPS Oklahoma and said her children are in immediate danger. Take them right now. So CPS Oklahoma stepped in and they did their own investigation. It was a 3 hour investigation. They met with me, met with family. I gave them access to my son's medical records. And she said, I deem your children safe. So then CPS Texas did not listen to them, and they still illegally crossed state lines and just with the sheriffs. So they lied and falsified court documents in the courthouse and with the judge in Texas. And then they crossed state lines into Oklahoma. And again, they lied and falsified court documents, lied to the judge in Oklahoma. And they showed up with the sheriffs and they just ripped my children out of my arms. And when sheriffs are showing up with their guns and their badges, and they're threatening, like it's such a horrible situation because the sheriff threatened my cousin and I that were there, and he told us, if you get involved anyway, in any way, you will be arrested. So it was just such a horrible feeling as a parent to just see them just rip your children out of your arms and take them. There's absolutely nothing you could do to stop this from happening, and it was completely illegal. um, it took my children were placed in the foster care system for 5 months, and they were denied the right to stay with family. CPS would not allow my children to stay with family, and that was a violation of their federal and state laws. Children are supposed to be placed with family, but we're finding that they're often placed in foster care, and it's not right, and it's violating their civil rights under the United States Constitution. They also wrongfully charged my children's father with 2 serious felonies, and we had to go to court to fight to get our children back. He had to go to court to fight for his innocence, and we had to sell our house to pay for the mounting attorney fees. It was just like a horrible, horrible situation. And it took 5 months to get my sons back. I lost them for 150 days while they're in the foster care system. We had to hire 3 attorneys and a fourth attorney for him for criminal court to fight for his innocence. And it was just such a horrible situation that even many years later, we're still trying to heal from, the emotional trauma. It's families that go through a situation. These are lifelong scars that they try to heal from. And going through a situation, you tend to feel alone and that no one else is going through it. So it took a few years for me to connect with other organizations, families, and attorneys. And I'm finding that this is happening so often in pretty much every county and every state all across the United States and in other countries like Canada, Sweden, France, India, Norway. It's happening everywhere, and it's a huge problem. And it's really devastating because they're violating our children's civil rights. My son's first, fourth, and 14th amendments were violated under the United States Constitution. It took about 2.5 years for me to get the correct diagnosis for my son. A medical expert actually said that he had a birth injury and a condition called benign external hydrocephalus. And I ended up finding out that the hospital that he was born at knew he had a birth injury, and they did not tell us, and they hid it from us. And then I found out that the children's hospital knew my son had hydrocephalus. They never told us, and instead they lied and made a false report to CPS of child abuse. And this is it's so heartbreaking and sad that this is just mass destruction of people's lives, and the children are being hurt. The emotional trauma for a child to be ripped from their parents' arms and to be placed with strangers in the foster care system, it's so completely heartbreaking and devastating for the children. And say there's about 500,000 children in foster care, if not more. Studies have shown the Children's Bureau did an investigation, or they wrote a report, and they said about 91% of these child abuse claims that are being reported are found to be false and unsubstantiated. 91%. And that's a huge concern. Also, I found that only 35% of families are getting their children back. They're actually terminating parental rights and adopting the children out, and they lose their children forever. So these are, huge concerns that I just hope and pray that lawmakers in every single state will start fighting for our families and our children all across the nation and worldwide. This is just a huge problem, and we need our lawmakers to help fight for us and to fight for our rights.
Lorena, if I may mention something, is you did a fantastic recap of that and everything that you've gone through. And when I initially heard your story, it was intriguing to me as someone, even though I don't have children, I looked at it as I can't believe someone would go through something like this because I've seen so many things when it comes to American news and American lawmakers where a lot of parents feel and think that there's this struggle between the state and themselves when it comes to the children. And as you mentioned, right, like you have a lot of parents who are having their children taken away from them but they actually don't get them back. So when you're when you're speaking to some of these other people who've gone through this in different parts of the world, like Norway, like India, different parts of America, Canada, where I'm from, were you surprised at how many other people are going through something similar to you?
Yes, when I first found that information out, I was really shocked. But now, like years later, it doesn't surprise me at all because I hear about it so often, and so many families are contacting me. It's really sad because it seems like the state, like the government agencies, CPS, DHS, whatever they're called, it seems like they're targeting families that don't have money to fight for themselves. Because I spoke with my cousin that's an attorney in California when this first happened, and she told me, "I know you guys would never hurt your kids at all. You hire your own attorneys and you fight this." So I'm so glad that she told me that because many families don't know how to navigate this huge process. And it seems like the system is set up for people to fail because the state has unlimited resources and funding, and the families and the children, there. Some people are on very limited income. They're struggling to, make ends meet. How do you have 80 to hundreds of thousands of dollars to hire attorneys to fight for yourself in court? Lots of families don't have this opportunity. So I've been really hoping and praying that we could somehow help families someday because this is a huge problem.
Do you think you'll ever reach the point where there would be attorneys that work specifically to help families through this time? Just because, as you mentioned, if you're being targeted, if you're a lower income or a lower class family, it's going to be difficult for you to be able to navigate the court systems and pay these fees because one, not everyone has a house to sell to finance this battle, and two, not everyone has maybe the resources, the time, and let's be honest, the courage, right? Because you're devastated that your family has been taken away from you and now you're rushing around thinking of what am I going to do next? Do you foresee attorneys taking this on and saying that, hey, our firm is dedicated to fight for the families to get their children back?
Yes, there is a firm in Texas. I forget the name of it right now, but it's with attorney Dennis Slate. He's doing an amazing job fighting for families. Now he has an association with a few families a few attorneys that are helping other families. But I just wish there could be an attorney like him in every single state and all over in other countries because I'm finding, when families are talking to me, because so many have contacted me, it seems like some of the attorneys, most of them